Hey y'all, it's Krypton Critics. I'm here to review Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, aka just The Empire Strikes Back, which was first released in 1980. It was sequence re-releases in 1997, 2004, 2011 that goes for all of the original trilogy of Star Wars films. I thoroughly love this movie. It's directed by Irving Kershner. Stars Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa, Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Kenny Baker as R2-D2, David Prowse and James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, Frank Oz as Yoda, and Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca himself. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to do this review is because I already did episode 4 with my younger brother. We did that review shortly before we saw episode 7 together. And I'm doing this one shortly before episode 8 comes out. Because I've heard a lot of complaining that, oh, you're just doing the same thing over again. And to those people, I'm just like, you hear and you see what you want to see. You know, you take everything at face value. You really don't understand what kind of story they're trying to provide for you. You are just quick and upset that it's moving on, or maybe the Disney's discontinuation of Legends material. But sometimes you just need to just like a fucking film. You know, I've heard before, I'm not sure who said it, but no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. And I don't think that there's been a phrase more about understanding Star Wars fans that has been ever more true. No, not to say that we're all like that. I'm definitely not. I love Star Wars. I love when it's done well. I can be disappointed, or I can laugh at how bad it is if it's not, such as, you know, the prequel trilogy. I don't hate those movies. There's some parts that I do like, but I don't defend them ever as great movies. The original 3 movies are all great. This is definitely not an exception. This movie has some of the best action of science fiction, and the trilogy itself, has great romance between, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher, rest in peace. Also rest in peace, Kenny Baker, who, a lot of times we don't think about his performance under, the plastic, suit that he wears. We just kind of dismiss it, and we just think about, well, that's a droid. We may start thinking of it as like a puppet, but it's not. Puppets in this movie, that's all Yoda, who is still, even with the messaging of the prequels, I still believe that he is one of the greatest Star Wars characters ever conceived. He is a lot of fun. He is extremely wise. He seemingly has all of the knowledge possible that you would need about the Force, but not necessarily about what fates a lie. Because this film shows that, even though how awesome, the legends, legendary stories of the Jedi are, and where they used to be, they're not perfect, and that's one of the things that I will accept as, some cleverness from the prequels, because it does show that, but the execution is still not great. Now, a lot of people will be definitely be bitching about Last Jedi, saying that, it's a rehash of this film, and I gotta start off by saying that Force Awakens is not a complete rehash. A lot of the story elements that they do used from the original movies. They put a different spin on it. And especially since Force Awakens takes more than just New Hope. Only the first act has the same first act as the original movie. The second one has a second. The third has a third. The example for this one is, second act of Empire Strikes Back. We have our young hero who has some thoughts of what the Jedi might be and hears legends and goes to a planet and meets with a very old person that knows a lot about the Force and the Jedi. And we also have Han Solo meeting an old friend on a planet. We also have, these weird monsters attacking the Millennium Falcon. And our heroes, and especially Han Solo, has to fly the Millennium Falcon through a monster's mouth. And towards the end of the second act, one of our heroes is taken away by the bad guys onto his ship, and our heroes fail to save that person from being saved. That happens in Force Awakens. Instead of Yoda as Maz Kanata, and she also plays the role of Lando Calrissian, and instead of Raftars, we have Minox, and we have, Space Slug. Now, what I always say is, using cliches and reused plots is not the problem. How you put it in film and the way you portray it, the way you send it to the audience, that can be the issue. And I still stand by Force Awakens as it is my favorite Star Wars movie, and it's also my favorite film, period. Now, do I acknowledge that there are problems in the movie? Definitely. But the way I enjoyed it, the way I got engaged with the characters, the plots, how the story is actually continued from the original trilogy, and it doesn't feel like everything's shoehorned like it was in 1, 2, and 3, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, was not only refreshing, but it's heartwarming. So this movie, we have introduction of Hoth, which looks like a horrible place to live. You get attacked by Wampos, and you got this weird ass sounding Tauntauns you ride. I mean, the technical aspects of how they work the Tauntauns is amazing, especially back in the day. But their faces, I'm sorry, they look a little derpy, and to me, they sound very odd. I mean, to me, that brings out a laugh and, scenes that may be, like dire, so, whatever. And, even though understanding that this was not information that were given back in 1980, just seeing, Luke Skywalker and Leia kissing twice in the movie, it's something about my investment into the story so much, and knowing that they are siblings, as a matter of fact, they're twins, and just seeing a real face doing it. It'd be different if I saw it in animation, we can disband a certain amount of, like, this feels real, and, this is less of, it's far less disgusting. Maybe that's why so many anime series get away with it, but anyway. There's so many great lines in this film. Everything Yoda says to Luke, it's perfect for a bumper sticker or a poster to look up at and really inspire understanding of the good and evil pull. How, the spirituality of the Force brings us together and binds the universe. Always amazing. I love the scene where, you know, Leia senses that her brother's in trouble and comes to get her. We see like a callback to that in like episode 7 when she feels the death, spoilers, of Han Solo, who she had, you know, Sabashir had fallen head over heels, and we have, you know, the great line of "I love you." I know. Gets me every time. I mean, not like I'm crying, but I always love hearing that. You know, it's still one of my favorite exchanges from this film. But yeah, a lot of the humor works, and you know, a good Star Wars movie you can watch no matter how you're feeling beforehand. You could be tired, you could be sad, you could be angry, but if you just sit down, you have not much to distract you. A good Star Wars movie should make you forget about what you were upset about, or what was ticking you off, or what was making you sad. But you know, give you something to root for. Sometimes it'll make you teary-eyed, and towards the end, I kind of was. I didn't cry. That's for Return of the Jedi in Episode 7. That's why that's one of the reasons why I enjoy those movies more. But to say that this movie, especially like how critics back in 1980 were saying that this feels like a rehash, this is not good as Star Wars, you know, the first one. It's an okay movie, which, you know, it's crazy to feel the deja vu of that, isn't it? Like, we have critics today talking about Episode 7 saying it feels like a rehash. It's a fine movie. It's not as good as the original. And not trying to examine anything like editing or sound design or models or puppets, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have any puppets, you don't have any models, or you don't have any characters that you will fall in love with, then you're doing your Star Wars film fucking wrong. This is why 5, 4, 6, 7, Rogue One, that's how you know they're doing it right. And I'm glad that Disney, you know, is learning from mistakes of the creators of, you know, the previous studio, and just makes me happy of what they're going to do next. I love seeing the stop motion AT-AT walkers. They're always fun to see. Have the snow speeders like, just putting cables around them. Always awesome to see. You know, the flesh and blood and meat all over that wampa, you know, is always badass. You know, any issue I have is very, very minor. It doesn't really affect the story. I was kind of wish, you know, we could have another Imperial General or Lieutenant that can be as awesome as Tarkin, and I don't think there has been in the live action films, as I'm concerned. Because to me, Tarkin is always the best. Probably my second favorite is Orson Krennic, and my third, maybe General Hux. Let's see what he does in the next movie. Maybe it'll grow on me. But yeah, just the themes of this movie of understanding the light and the dark. And, you know, I can bring it into the disgust a lot of, you know, fanboys have had with Episode 7 is, what do we know about Darth Vader in his first outing. And 1977, he's a badass who he's a villain. He looks so cool with that lightsaber, and maybe he has a past with these other characters. We know basically nothing. What do we know about Kylo Ren in Episode 7 in his first outing? We had never heard that name until we saw that movie. He's a conflicted person. He has a direct descendant to Darth Vader, and he wishes to be him. He breathes in his father's ashes. He hurts himself to give himself an adrenaline rush while he is dying, and that's why he fails. His training is unfinished. He has inferiority complex. There's like 4 other things going on with his character than just one thing. He has a basket case type mentality, and he yes, he has a bright nature, but that is his character. I'll say I give it up for how smooth Lando is, how genius, some of the lines that we get from C-3PO are. Even if I'm not laughing out loud, I always get happy watching it. I always snicker to myself. I always like hearing scruffy-looking Nerf herder. It's always amazing. The confrontation with, Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and he's told his son, is iconic for a reason. It's not just because of its property. It is well executed. The fight is awesome. And you really do feel the hopelessness of the character. And he loses his hand, and he questions why, Obi-Wan Kenobi never told him about who his real father was, because we find out later that, they were supposed to be like best friends, and then Obi-Wan had to chop off his legs at a volcano. Well, I'm sorry, a volcano planet, which is, even though it's still goofy and weird, and I'm just making fun of the execution more than anything else. The concept, like, you bring up pretty much any of the concepts in Star Wars, they're all like mind-blowing and amazing. Like, you can only imagine just hearing all these stories before seeing the movie in 77. You're like, holy shit, how could you possibly fund this? How would you possibly get money? Like, this can't go against Turner and Hooch. But that is the magic, that when you have the desperation, when you're hungry to be creative, and when you learn to work with your fellow creators and understand a world, you can make something that has a religion built around it, has the biggest amount of fans, has people crying and laughing all at the same time, and it connects us. I can't imagine a world without Star Wars. And it is definitely one of the greatest intellectual properties that has ever been conceived. So I will definitely give my boy George Lucas, Father Krypton Critics, this movie deserves a fucking A. I feel like as long as you're not one of 1, 2, and 3 in the prequels, then you deserve at least an A minus, as far as I've seen. Well, I wouldn't say that for the Clone Wars cartoon movie, but anyway, this damn franchise. It's part of the Krypton Critics. I love it.